Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead of them and their companies. I'm your host, Olivia, and in each episode we'll uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today I'm excited to be joined by Suzanne Teale, leadership coach, consultant, and founder of the Growth Partners and Unlock Potential. Suzanne will be sharing, I've gone all tongue-tied. Suzanne will be sharing more about her founding story and giving us a glimpse into plans for future growth. Suzanne, welcome to Founders Future. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Pleasure to have you here, and I'm excited to dive in. So, with all of my guests, I do actually like to start at the beginning of their journey, but I know we may be coming on a bit of a tangent because we have two to talk about. So, which one came first, and then do they kind of merge in together? How do you want to go about starting the beginning of your journey into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think we can talk about one that leads on to the other, really. So Teale Growth Partners is my limited company, and that's kind of what I created when I came out of my full-time corporate career.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean, it's quite functional, really, you know, to go into business and to work with corporates. Really, I needed to establish myself as a limited company and to win some of the contracts that I initially started with. And then Unlock Potential and Hypnotherapy came afterwards, really. So the way that journey started was I was already retraining in the therapy space because I knew that was something that I wanted to do. But as I was transitioning out of the corporate life into being self-employed and starting my own company, I did start taking some initial contracts as a freelance commercial director, which is my background, was B2B sales and marketing. And then as life takes various turns, I kind of started focusing more on Unlock Potential, because that's really the future of where I want my business to grow and where I want to have impact and kind of take myself in my next part of my career. So now really Unlock Potential is the kind of leading brand, shall I say. Teale Growth Partners is effectively my company that I work with corporates and commercially.
Nice. And when you kind of made that switch from obviously a corporate background in the workplace to entrepreneurs, how did you find that? Was there any kind of skills that you could draw upon to move into that role, or was it just a completely putting out fires all over the place?
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock to the system. You know, you're kind of planning it and you think that's going to be, yeah, this is great. Yeah. You know, I've got 30 years in working in business. You know, how different can it be? And it really is. And I think it's because, you know, the realization comes in that when you're part of a business, you're part of a bigger team, so you've got teammates and you've got people who are helping you and you've got specialist experts, and when you're on your own, you're kind of like, yes, gosh, I didn't realize how much content I need to create. I didn't realize how much systems and processes I need to really keep my eye on, because it's just you doing it. So you really notice your weaknesses and strengths quite quickly. So some of my background now has helped me, because, you know, I was in sales and marketing and I love people and I love that kind of side of business. So that's really great. But also because I've moved into the well-being space and therapy and hypnotherapy, this, you know, it's very much about helping people overcome issues and build healthier, stronger relationships with their mind. And that is something that's very different from, you know, negotiating contracts for, you know, my former companies and writing business proposals. It's a really different space. Definitely transferable skills. Definitely, you know, I've got a background that has helped me set up. It's given me the confidence to set up. But yeah, definitely, it's a very, very different experience, but brilliant. And I've actually gone out there and found other people like me and found my gang, my community of other solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, and that's been so beneficial to just helping me out.
That's amazing. And it always is just having people, like, as you say, in that same process, same mindset, just that camaraderie that you get from leaning on other entrepreneurs within the space and coaches as well. It's just very cool. So let's dive into Unlock Potential a little bit more then, so we can have some context moving forward. So, like, walk me through, who would you say at this point is your ideal customer? Like, who do you really love to work with the most? And then from there, how is you help them and how do you support them?
Okay, so I probably my ideal customer and kind of the client that I'm working with most are people like me. So midlife professionals, kind of get into, I call it my third chapter. So, you know, I've kind of gone up the corporate ladder. I'm now self-employed. but people who are really kind of got lots going on. So we've got aging parents, we've got families that we're dealing with, we've got careers that we're managing. And it's, you know, I work with all genders because people are experiencing the same pressures. I think with, you know, the world feels really heavy right now. There's so much polarization, and you know, it's just a lot. So people are really struggling with that mental load. And I think we spend a lot of time talking about our physical fitness. So I'm really on kind of a bit of a mission to help people with their mental fitness. And this is about understanding how your mind works, so building that healthy relationship with your mind, because, you know, invariably what's going on in our heads will spill out into our outer world. So, you know, if you're a professional with a lot going on, it could affect your leadership, it could affect your relationships, how you're communicating with people and how you're building those relationships in work and in your personal life. So I'm generally talking to those people who are maybe silently struggling, maybe they're not burnt out, not over, you know, but there's kind of signs there, and it's getting a bit heavier. And then particularly for women, we have the luxury of the menopause kicking in, which, you know, can really derail us, because I know it did me on a personal level. You know, you feel a bit different. So yeah, those midlife professionals who have got, I think we're called the sandwich generation. So we've got the aging parents, we've still got the families. They're the people that, you know, I'm talking to most, and who are coming into the therapy room.
Yeah, I love it. And it's such a good point you made there, because people do put a lot of effort and work into making sure they're physically fit, but they're not always on the same side of having the same mental fitness as what they do for their body. It's almost like if it's not seen, it's not an issue. Like if you can't have something tangible to really work on, like we don't really ignore it, but it plays such an important part in like life in general. As you say,
So
like
important.
as you get older, the menopause may come in. Even for men, you know, you have stress as you get older, things change,
Yeah.
society around you moves. You just have to be mentally prepared. So how is it then you support them through that journey? Is there like a framework that you have and develop, or is this more on a one-to-one coaching level? Like, what is it like
Um,
to work with you?
so I've developed a what I call my mind management method, which is very much about being proactive mentally. And you've just raised a good point that because you can't always see it, sometimes people will come once they're in crisis. So what I really am trying to do is kind of raise the conversation and the issue before you get to that point where you're burnt out. So let's kind of deal with those, you know, those symptoms that are sneaking in that you might be noticing, not paying attention to. So you can work with me in a one-to-one basis, which is really great because it's very specific, very targeted. And hypnotherapy, because it works with the subconscious mind, it can be a relatively quick therapy.
Yeah.
And what's been interesting for me since I've kind of been on a journey, you know, I do get a lot of male clients who, you know, are struggling in the same way that women are, you know, kind of the pressures, the expectations, etc. So we're all, you know, there's a lot of common threads that run through, even though issues are very specific. But yeah, that mental fitness piece and the one-to-one is great. So that's very personal. That is therapy. That's come in
Yeah.
and we do hypnotherapy for what you need. In the corporate space, I'm launching more mental fitness programs. So this is where we can work in a group. So it's not asking people to come in a corporate environment and, you know, offload everything that's going on in their mind, but it's helping them understand how their mind operates. So it's like basic neuroscience, because it's all grounded in neuroscience, just so they can kind of spot themselves and catch themselves. And again, it's just about being more aware. We all think, you know, I suppose we all run on autopilot to a degree, don't we? You know, it's just the way I am. I'm always like this. This is just what I do. And the reality is, it doesn't have to be. You can change that. You can change that script. So in a corporate environment or in a group environment, it moves more into teaching. And then we do kind of a group, a guided relaxation, hypnosis, meditation, just to help you embed new thought patterns, habits, and just rewrite a script. So you've got like an inner cheerleader rather than an inner critic. But yeah, I think it's really powerful that you get given those tools. So one-to-one therapy, great. We can deal with very specific issues, and that's brilliant. But in a group environment, it's more about, you know, tips, techniques, training yourself to be more intentional, I suppose, with how
Yeah.
you're using your mind.
Yeah, I love it. And really spot those signs, as you say before, you've hit burnout. You know, it's all about prevention, getting there,
Exactly.
realizing kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
Really cool. And even with the group, it must be quite nice to just have that camaraderie with people that are maybe going through the similar thing as well. So you can kind of highlight in other people and just realize, oh, that worked well for them, maybe I should try it for myself, or I've got something in common, maybe we should kind of work through that together as well. It just adds a whole nother level to the
Yeah.
therapy side of it. And then also with hypnotherapy, can this be done online as well, or do you mainly work in person
Yeah.
with your clients?
No, I think a lot of people do like in person, and I
Yeah.
don't know whether that's just state of the nation and people wanting a bit more human interaction rather than everything on digital. But it's equally as effective digitally. So if geography or literally, you can't physically get to me, yeah, working online is absolutely fine.
That's really cool because it obviously just allows you to reach just a number of people that are
Yeah.
all over the place, that you might find a connection with that aren't just in your local area.
Yeah,
And then
definitely.
obviously with your background in marketing and sales, I'm kind of intrigued as to how you go about your marketing yourself at the moment. So like in terms of channels or method, what are you really finding most effective in finding that right person?
So I've had to really try and find my inner content creator. So social is really crucial. And I've been a big fan of B-rolls and just put my face behind it, but I'm just starting to get into kind of doing a video. So social's really good because I think if people are looking for therapy or they're in crisis or they're dealing with something that maybe not sure where to start, I think, it's that, I suppose, the awareness stage, isn't it? Creating awareness of who I am, what I do, and how it can help people. So social is really important. But actually some traditional marketing, actually, so door drops and leaflets in local areas, is really helpful. And obviously going on to local groups, online groups, etc. So that's been really good. Obviously promoted digital ads and social ads and Google AdWords is what I've been doing, because ultimately that's where we're going, isn't it? And it's just how people find you. So for me, that awareness piece is really important. And I think if people kind of like what they're seeing and kind of the things that I'm talking about, then it does prompt, a trip to the website and an inquiry. So the process in terms of how people get in touch with me, generally it'll go through a bit of they'll reach out on one of the channels. It might be through a contact form, it might be through social, but they'll generally I offer a free 15-minute discovery call to make sure that A, I can help them with their issue, and B, answer any question they've got about hypnotherapy, because, some people think it's a bit magical or, it's a stage hypnosis, which it isn't. So that discovery call is really important. So the sales and marketing does go through that typical awareness, engagement, and then follow up. And again, that's really important, the follow up, because people might reach out to me when they're in the midst of a crisis and they come across me. They might reach out to me, booking a call, and the next day they wake up and they feel a bit more, we all know we get a good night's sleep. Sometimes the problem doesn't feel as big. And so then they might not turn up for the discovery call. So then it's the follow-up for me that I need to make sure that my systems and my processes are not letting, just because they didn't, if they didn't turn up for the call, for example, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not interested. Maybe it was they, missed it for whatever reason. So that follow-up's really important, I think, in therapy, because, people might need a couple of gentle nudges. So yeah, so it's a blend of, I suppose, broadcast and kind of broader media outreach through digital channels and offline, and then trying to take it through a more personal journey, which is email, maybe some WhatsApp messages. But finding that balance, again, because we're in that well-being space and in that therapy space, I also understand that people might have a change of heart. So, it's getting that balance between kind of helping and offering the support and not making the client feel bad, which could exacerbate their issues.
Yeah, 100%. You don't want to be pushy and like getting them on a call if they're not. It's such a sensitive line to like kind of walk along, because as you say, they've reached out for a reason, but you don't want to be hounding them or harassing them on the other end if they don't up to the call. But the good interest and someone that actually wants to help people, you do have to make sure they kind of go through with it and see it as there. Just don't scare them off, I think, is
exactly. And I think that's when, you need to think about those nurture cycles. So, and this is where my corporate background does come in. So you're kind of moving out of that new client acquisition. It's like, right, now this is about nurturing some, maybe then, potential clients, they just fall into my, monthly kind of newsletter, which is really tips. It's quite light. Again, because you're doing everything yourself, it isn't like a weekly newsletter. And just be there for them when they're ready to take that next step. And so that, I suppose, that nurture cycle is really important, I suppose, to build rapport and trust.
Exactly that. It's the know, like, and trust factor, but just being top of mind, knowing that you're that person they can turn to when they're ready to actually step up and want the help. You know, you can't force people into needing the help sometimes, which is the annoying thing
Exactly.
about it, even though you can see it from the outside. And then obviously with regards to the marketing, it's amazing. You kind of have channels everywhere, different mediums, in person, online. It's just nice to have a good flow. And then with the ads as well, it just adds a nice consistency coming through, which isn't always achievable with organic all the time. But then what do the like next 6 to 12 months have in store for you? As obviously we're working on this one, it's the main focus moving forward. Like, what is that end goal when you think about scaling it?
So I was on a Christmas lunch with my solopreneur community, and we were all talking about what's our word for 2026. And I think mine is more about is kind of ignite, kind of the next stage, really. And what I'd really like to do, so one-to-one therapy is great and I really enjoy this, but then that's limited by time and hours in the day, in the week, etc. So from a scalability perspective, I really want to grow communities and groups a bit more, and especially in-person groups. So as much as I value AI as a helpful tool to get through mundane tasks, I think, and you would imagine with me being a therapist and a hypnotherapist, very much human connection is absolutely crucial. So I'm looking to build out more communities. So yes, an online community, so people who we can all share and build relationships there, but smaller group communities as well, dealing with quite specific issues. So I'm launching in January my first weight management hypnotherapy group, and it'll only be 8 people. We come together each week for 6 weeks. We talk generally, and in weight management is you might be looking to lose weight, you might be looking to move away from pharmacological solutions and need kind of to make sure that your habits are in a good place. Before that, you might be someone who needs to gain weight. Whatever your weight management journey
Yeah.
is, it's all about changing those behaviors and mindsets that might be derailing the plan. Then, I've got a kind of, again, mind management method, which is more about just getting more control of your emotional balance and building resilience. So I've got a couple of groups with key themes that will appeal to different people. So I want to launch them in the new year. So if I can get a couple of them off the ground and get a community built, I mean, that'd be a great 2026. And
Yeah.
that just allows me to reach more people and makes me more accessible as well from people who either don't want or can't afford private one-to-one therapy. The group solution allows me to reach more people. And that's the main, that's my ultimate goal is to help as many people as I can just get really comfortable and build resilience and a brilliant relationship with their own minds so they feel safe and secure.
Amazing. And the group is that double-edged sword, as you say, on your end, you can help that a vast amount of people with the limited time you have on your hands as well. And then they get like the camaraderie of being in a group. I also like that you really tailored each group to the specific, obviously, situation or challenge that they're facing, which is really nice because you just have a group of people really in that same mindset.
Exactly.
Really cool.
Exactly. And I'm glad you like that idea, because I'm
Yeah.
liking it. It's just like, right, how's it going
Do
to go down? But I
it.
think that camaraderie is right. And I think we are
Yeah.
seeing a few trends where people are searching for offline groups for everything from like creative stuff, but
Yeah.
through to things like therapy and
100%.
group learning.
Yeah, it's really cool. And where are you finding like the biggest challenge for yourself in kind of making it all happen?
Probably just that people, I suppose it's the same thing for everyone really, but it's people finding the time and trying to kind of get your message out there. So yeah, as a solopreneur, you need to be more creative and more resourceful because you've got limited budgets and you've got limited time and things like that. So that's challenging. But again, surrounding yourself with people who are doing it, I've got access to people who can help. And I think there's a really great community of virtual assistants and people who are specialists in areas that are my weaknesses that I now know.
Yeah.
I can go and outsource that to somebody. There's a freelance or a fractional or a virtual specialist in, I've met so many fantastic people. So as I'm scaling, I definitely see 2026. The challenges is getting that balance between bringing the expertise in to help me grow and generating the revenues and the cash flow that helps fund it. So, typical business issues, I suppose, whether you're, a small business or a giant corporate.
yeah, as you say, they kind of, doesn't matter how big you are, you always seem to have the same problems when it comes to scaling. But it's such a great mindset to have on your part, because a lot of founders do find themselves being the bottleneck of the company and find it very hard to separate themselves from that baby or from that company they've built, and obviously offer the jobs out. So it's just nice to know that on your mind, that's part of the plan, and that you're like mentally preparing yourself as well to not burn out, to take caution for your time and really focus on your zone of brilliance. It's really, really cool. And then I have one final question to ask you before we log out. So, if you could go back in time to a younger self and you could only leave yourself one piece of advice moving forward, something you know now but that you didn't know then, what would you say to yourself?
Everything is temporary. You know, the highs, the lows, you know, they do come to an end, but
Yeah.
particularly the lows, or where you've never, you know, if you ever have feelings of, I can't, I'm not enough, etc., just go for it and just try, because whether you succeed or fail, those feelings, they're temporary. And in 5 years, you probably, you know, it's just a life lesson. So yeah, maybe just be brave and be bold, because everything's temporary.
I love it. Yeah. Everything shall pass. And Suzanne,
Exactly.
thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your incredible journey and insight with us. Where can our listeners reach out to work with you, connect with you if they would like to do so?
Okay, so you can visit my website, which is www.unlock-potential.co.uk. I'm on Instagram, and you can find me on LinkedIn.
Beautiful. And thank you again. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go and check out Suzanne and all the amazing work that she's doing. And do not forget to subscribe to Founders Future by wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts. And if you are a business owner, specifically a coach, consultant, or agency owner, and you're really looking to scale your business and you want to enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to hop on a call with one of our team and discover how we went from $0 to $30 million per year in less than 3 years. But until then, keep on climbing, and we will see you on the next one.